When a human threatens to lose their cool, the galaxy should listen. Carl, the regal diplomat, couldn't tell if Commander Andrus was joking or if he was dead serious. It wasn't the first time a human had made this kind of offhand comment during negotiations, but there was a tone to Andrus's voice that frankly made the temperature drop. The Galactic Council chamber was packed, delegates from dozens of species eyeing each other with the usual distrust. But today they were united in one purpose: figuring out what to do about humanity. Andrus stood alone at the center, hands clasped behind his back, relaxed yet unmistakably intense. "Commander Andrus," began Perut, an elder representative of the Lazen Order, his voice layered with the clicking accent of his people. "The incidents involving human colonies across the outer sector have raised certain concerns." He paused, his mandibles twitching nervously. "Some members question the appropriateness of your species' actions in response." Andrus raised an eyebrow, waiting for Perut to continue, though his expression suggested he already knew what was coming. "You took actions that resulted in the unfortunate disintegration of the Ith station," Perut went on, his voice laced with unease. "Several thousand were aboard, none of whom were human, and we are yet to see any indication of remorse or acknowledgement of error on your part." Andrus's face remained impassive. He took a slow breath, eyes glinting. "Representative Perut," he replied calmly, "the Ed Station launched an unprovoked assault on a civilian human outpost. They destroyed everything, with no survivors." He let that sink in, watching the crowd of alien representatives shift uncomfortably. "You all talk about peace, about laws and civility, yet you let this slide for every species except ours." There was a shuffling around the room, a low murmur rising as Andrus's words hit their mark. The silence that followed felt tense, almost buzzing. A Zark-Tan delegate, covered in layers of scaled armor, raised a clawed hand. "Are you suggesting that the human race intends to act outside the established laws of engagement?" Andrus tilted his head. "Not at all. But there's a line, a boundary every species has. It just happens that ours was crossed a while back, and we've been more than patient." The Zarkon snorted, a puff of greenish vapor escaping his nostrils. "Patience? Humans claim patience? Tell me, Commander, what does human patience mean when dozens of non-human colonies are left in ruins?" Andrus's eyes hardened, his jaw clenched slightly. "It means, Representative," he began, his tone cooling, "that our actions have been restrained compared to what we're capable of." He let the words sink in, and for the first time, Carl felt a chill. Humanity's restraint was not something he'd considered before. To the other species, humans were new to the Council, a relatively young race eager to prove itself. But there had always been an undercurrent, a layer to their interactions that had never been fully understood. Another representative spoke up, a Mervin with deep cavernous eyes that seemed to swallow the light. "We still don't understand why this incident was necessary. Couldn't humanity have approached us, requested our intervention?" "Requested?" Andrus echoed, almost amused. "We requested protection for years. We asked for mutual defense treaties, for anti-piracy patrols, even for a simple observer station in our sector." He scanned the faces of the Council. And what was the response? Nothing. No aid, no interest, just rules that seemed to exist only to restrain us while the rest of you carried on as usual. Perut raised a hand again, his tone more cautious. "We understand your frustration, Commander, but the destruction of the Eth Station seems disproportionate. Is there not a more diplomatic solution humanity could have pursued?" Andrus fixed his gaze on the elder. "Tell me, Representative Perut, what is the appropriate response when your civilians are slaughtered without warning?" His voice softened, but there was an edge, a warning. "Is there some calculation you use, some exact ratio of lives taken that makes it fair?" The room fell silent. No one dared answer. Every representative present knew that, by the standards of most species, humans were already outliers. While other races practiced restraint and negotiation to avoid confrontation, humanity's instinct to protect their own was deeply ingrained. And when they'd finally had enough, Andrus took another step forward, closer to the center, making eye contact with each of the representatives. "We've adhered to the laws of the Council. We've listened to every regulation, every mandate, and we've done everything possible to show that we are reasonable, even when you didn't listen." His gaze hardened. "But if you expect us to sit back while our people are erased from existence, then you haven't been paying attention." Q. Ader shifted uncomfortably. In his years of serving on the Council, he had rarely seen this level of defiance. Humanity had always been assertive. Yes, but this was different. There was a weariness to Andrus's words, a quiet implication that the rest of the galaxy hadn't fully grasped what it was to push a species too far. The Merlin delegate, clearly perturbed, spoke up again. Commander Andrus, are you implying that humans will continue to respond aggressively to any perceived threat? Andrus folded his arms, his face unreadable. No, he replied evenly. I'm saying that from now on, humanity will respond in whatever way ensures our people's safety. If that means aggressive action, then that's what it means. A new silence descended, heavier than the last. The council members exchanged glances, and Qatar could see the unease on their faces. It was no secret that the galaxy's most powerful species had assumed that humanity would fall in line, that they would adhere strictly to the council's expectations. But now, it was becoming clear that their patience had limits. Perut hesitated before speaking again. We are not accustomed to this kind of response from council members. We ask that humanity exercise restraint in any future conflicts. Andrus nodded. We will exercise restraint when restraint is warranted, but we will not hesitate to act decisively when threatened. You may call it what you want, but it's simply self-preservation. A faint, bitter chuckle escaped the Zarkon representative, though his voice was tense. Self-preservation or a challenge to the council? Neither, Andrus said, meeting the Zarktan's gaze. It's a warning, one that's long overdue. He turned, looking over the assembly of alien faces. The galaxy has assumed our tolerance was endless, that we would endure quietly. But humanity has reached its threshold. There will be no more tolerance for attacks, no more looking the other way while our people suffer. Another ripple of murmurs passed through the hall, the realization settling in. Humanity was done waiting for approval, done bending over backward to be seen as part of the council's civilized order. Qatar couldn't help but feel a pang of concern. He had observed humans from the start, witnessed their adaptability, their resilience, and now he understood, perhaps too late, that they possessed something far more dangerous. The tension in the council chamber only grew. Each species had its own way of processing threats, and the idea of an outright warning was deeply unsettling to many of the representatives. To them, diplomacy was synonymous with decorum, with holding back. But here was humanity, not posturing, not issuing empty threats, just calmly declaring the end of its patience. After Andrus's speech, the representatives shifted uneasily. A ripple of confusion crossed Kata's mind, reflecting the general unease. He had been an observer of humanity's journey since they'd first joined the council. At first, he'd been fascinated by their curiosity, their rapid advancements, their strange customs. But now, he felt he'd barely scratched the surface of what humans could do. The council head, a tall, translucent, segmented Aeon named Chair, spoke up. His voice resonated through the chamber. Commander Andrus, you have made your position clear. However, such declarations could destabilize our collective peace. His long, slender arms extended in a gesture meant to convey calm. Surely we can find a compromise that respects humanity's needs without undermining the council's authority. Andrus sighed, and for the first time, Qatar noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. He looked like a man who'd been fighting battles far beyond the reach of this chamber, battles that had taken a toll on his people in ways the council couldn't imagine. Chair, he began slowly, we have always sought peace. But peace without security is a hollow concept. A Marian delegate, shifting in agitation, clicked his long claws together. Is there no way for humanity to assure its safety without resorting to these aggressive measures? Andrus's gaze hardened, though his tone remained steady. We tried that, remember? Years of negotiation, treaties, agreements, all under the council's protection. Yet time after time, when our colonies were attacked, you told us to wait, to be patient. He paused, scanning the faces around him. And we waited. We buried our dead and rebuilt. But patience has limits. Qatar felt a prickle of realization. Humanity's anger wasn't born of ambition or greed. It was the fury of a species that had been ignored, dismissed, and underestimated. He glanced around and saw his fellow representatives struggling to understand this perspective. For most of them, war was ancient history, a relic of a less civilized era. But humans had risen from conflict. Their history was filled with trials, tests, and survival against all odds. Qatar wondered if the galaxy had ever truly considered the resilience bred into them. One of the council's senior diplomats, a hulking feathered Tavani named Aaron, fluffed his silvered feathers in a show of unease. Perhaps it is not just about defending your colonies, Commander. Perhaps humanity feels it has something to prove. Andrus chuckled, though there was no warmth in it. Prove? We have nothing to prove. We're not here to show the galaxy how strong or dangerous we are. We're here to protect our people. And if that protection requires force, then that's what it requires. Perut, the Yin, raised a clawed hand in a plea for understanding. Commander Andrus, surely you can see the Council's perspective. Such retaliation breeds retaliation. The cycle could continue indefinitely, destabilizing our shared galaxy. Andrus looked at him sharply. There's no cycle here, Representative. The cycle exists only because humanity has been holding back while others have taken advantage of our restraint. We simply want that restraint acknowledged and respected, not ignored. Qatar realized, with an odd sense of dread, that humanity had not been playing the same game as the other species. For most of the Council, power and influence were currencies to be traded, tools used with caution. But for humanity, the stakes were far more personal. A Triaxian representative, her scales glimmering in the dim light, spoke up. Her voice filled with calculated diplomacy. We are all part of this council, Commander, and as such, we must trust each other. If one member, any member, chooses to act outside of agreed protocol, the very foundation of our unity is at risk. Andrus's gaze held steady, unyielding. Unity requires more than trust. It requires accountability. Humanity has asked for aid, for mutual protection, for recognition of its rights. But time and time again, we were met with indifference. He spread his hands, voice rising ever so slightly. What do you call unity when one part is expected to sacrifice and endure without support? His words lingered in the air, leaving an uncomfortable silence. The delegates glanced at one another, their expressions a mixture of confusion, guilt, and growing fear. For the first time, they seemed to understand that humanity wasn't seeking domination or territory. They were simply done with a system that left them vulnerable. The Atherin chair, sensing the change in the room, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Then tell us, Commander, what does humanity seek from this council now? Andrus's voice, steady and final, echoed in the chamber. We seek respect.